many people do we have?
Here we go. Hi, I'm Radical Liberation, self-declared King of the Moon, coming at you from St. Louis, Missouri, in these United States. And we also have Mad Mercenary.
Hello.
A rather tired Mad Mercenary, so give him a break today. Okay, let's see. Couple things I wanted to cover, meta show stuff, and then we'll get into the topics of the day. We did have that guest scheduled for next week, wasn't that? Am I thinking of the right month, Mad Mer?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to highlight that at the end. At the end of the matter here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I asked you in
right.
Discord. So, okay. So first of all, I wanted to talk about taking the channel to the next level, since you all are supporters of the channel. Anyone who watches, and also, of course, we especially are supported by people who support us financially, and we'll talk about ways you can do that at the end of this. But first, I want to tell you why, or what we do with this money. Well, one, of course, is we do prizes for our annual contest. We'll be highlighting the prizes we sent last year in just a moment. But we also have plans in the works to take the channel to the next level. So, for example, just last night, I'd been putting it off for some reason, but I finally ordered a green screen, and not a cheap one, a nice one, a big one, that will help on the visual front. Mad Merc had upgraded his mic. We have some new branding we're working on that will come out soon, a switch to OBS from StreamYard, which will let us improve certain aspects of the visual presentation of the show. So point is, we are investing in the show, and you guys are supporting us doing that, because some of these things, it's just a matter of spending time. Some of these, it's a matter of actually spending money. So really appreciate those who help us improve the show. So a particular way that I love to get support is from those who subscribe as regular subscribers at Subscribestar. Part of the reason I like it is that I don't feel very guilty about it, because it's $5 a month. So I figure, unless you are absolutely an on-potatoes college student, then I'm not, ruining your life, convincing you to support us with $5 a month. We actually have quite a few people supporting us at this point through Subscribestar, and it really helps, because, of course, that means we have a regular income we can plan, we can count on as we work on improvements to the show. Also, worth mentioning while we're live here is that you can do the regular subscriptions, which is what I usually thought of Subscribestar for, but you can also do basically super chats. They're called tips. And I have committed, I put it in my little script, that at the end of the show, when we're going through super chats, I look through those Subscribestar tips first, give them pride of place, because for one thing, Google gets less of the money, and more of the money you donate that way comes to us. So that's awesome. So that's a great way to support the show. Also, we have had a few donations of Bitcoin through our public Bitcoin address. So the Subscribestar and the Bitcoin are both right at the bottom of our show description, the video description. So would love to have you help us be part of the team, as Steve Turley would say, as we continue to grow this channel. Something else I wanted to highlight, which I don't think I have ever talked about, is something I spend a lot of time on as a sort of relaxing activity for me in between doing other things. And that is my Twitter channel. And I think it's appropriate to mention here, because let me tell you what I basically don't do on it. I don't say I'd zero do it, but in terms of what you would see on a regular basis, it's extremely rare that you're going to see personal, like Facebooky type sharing. I do it a little, but not much. Mostly, a picture of my kids being cute or something like that, right? But generally, that's not really what my Twitter's for. My wife manages Facebook for that, for our family and friends type people. I don't talk about technology, which actually is my career, but that's not really what I do on Twitter. I had non-characteristic technology post today about the M1 chip from Apple, but generally I don't talk about that. I don't talk about electoral politics. My good friend, the academic agent, finds that interesting as much as he tries not to. Murray Rothbard found electoral politics very interesting and was able to talk down to the neighborhood almost of what was going on in terms of why people were voting this way and that. Just not an interest of mine personally, and certainly not one I do on Twitter. I don't talk about music or art, even though these are things of interest to me. So my Twitter account really is mostly focused on sort of political economy in the broadest sense of that term. You'll find me live tweeting articles and books that I'm reading, videos that I think are relevant, insightful. I comment on things that are going on that are interesting. So to give you an idea, I have commented very little in the last several years on Trump or Biden in terms of their chances to win elections or detailed policy critiques or something like that. But what does interest me, and you'll see me talk about, is the role of the deep state in opposing Trump and supporting Biden. That sort of interests me from a, deeper analysis point of view. Just this week, I've started to take an interest in international relations theory. This is the point for Matt Merck to say, finally, right? And this week, I just started on a book that was recommended to me by some folks on Twitter that focuses on a school of international relations that has the charming name Offensive Realism. I suggested that if it wasn't taken already, academic agent should use that for his own as a name for his own perspective on things. Offensive realism. I thought that was charming. Another example, just to give you more of a flavor of what I do there. Today, I shared really good post from Telegram, really spelling it out step by step of what I dubbed the Spook MSM Wikipedia info complex. So if any of that makes you want to run to that link that I just dropped into the live chat and check out my Twitter, then you are the right audience for the kind of things I do there. So I had never mentioned before, I realized, and I think it is of interest to this audience. All right, teaser. Hopefully I'll remember to mention this again at the end, but right up front, wanted to mention that we do have a plan for next week. We actually scheduled somebody. It is, if I'm correct, Mad Merrick, Apostolic Majesty, right?
Correct.
Yes, I have been on his channel twice. The one that I was most excited about, we discussed the Pope during World War II, who in recent times, there was a book came out called Hitler's Pope, and basically a couple books and different things saying that Pope Pius XII had cooperated in getting Jews killed and stuff. In short, I mean, that's essentially what they were driving. They were basically trying to hang the Holocaust on him, or part of it or something, partial blame. This is a horrendous fabrication of history, as people like the early prime ministers of Israel would have told you. He was in fact considered a great hero by people persecuted during World War II, like the Jews. And so this just is a stench unto my nostrils. So I had to jump on Apostolic Majesty's channel so we could talk about that. His channel is more of a history channel. It is a history channel. And so we talked about a great book called The Myth of Hitler's Pope by a rabbi, no less, absolutely destroying the people who have put forward this insane view of history. That literally has no basis. It's just fabrications, bad translations. I mean, just the worst scholarship you've seen in your life. So it was my pleasure to be involved with stomping on that horrible rendition of history with Apostolic Majesty. So in return, I've asked him to join us, and this is a stretch for him because his area of specialty has more to do with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, Central Europe, stuff like that. But he is British, so. We're going to talk about a book that was edited by Hayek called, sorry, my mind's going blank, The Capitalist, the History, Capitalism and the Historians. Sorry, that's it, Capitalism and the Historians. And it's about the Industrial Revolution. and the ongoing argument among historians, and this includes economists, by the way, economic historians, over the significance of the Industrial Revolution, what it means, how did it happen, did it make people's lives better or worse, so on and so forth. It'll be quite interesting because some of the original people who did not like the Industrial Revolution were conservatives, or maybe you might even say reactionaries or something. And Apostolic Majesty is definitely a reactionary. So it'll be very interesting. It might not be just a straight out rah-rah session for the Industrial Revolution. I think you'll find it good. So that's next week's show. Strongly recommended. Apostolic Majesty is, shall we say, a new star in our network of friends on YouTube. Okay, so that's everything I had for the top of the show.
Don't
I'm
worry,
sorry,
Chad. I'll moderate it.
This is the top of the show thing too. I forgot. So these are the silver coins we sent out. On the left column, you have the first prize silver coins. The middle column is second prize, and third is the coin for third prize, first, second, third. And just wanted to show that to motivate what we're going to show you next, which is that we're doing it again. We are doing a flag competition. So, Mad Merc, I'm just going to quietly bring these up into focus real quick, very, very quickly as you talk. So, what is the parameters of this?
Okay, so as everyone knows, last year we had a lot of fun and we had a currency competition. Well, this year we're doing something a bit different. This year we are doing a flag competition. And these flags are meant to be of a city-state that can be fictional or non-fictional. All that we ask is that you give a short description of the place that you're trying to make the flag for, and that you give a bit of a description of the flag itself. So any of the symbols or colors on the flag, what they may mean, so that we may grasp the full context of your flag and judge it accordingly. Now, again, they can be fictional or a non-fictional flag for a non-fictional place or a fictional place. They can be of whatever design you want. If you want a really complex design that is very uses the principles of symbology and use great colors, or you could have a very simple flag. It doesn't matter. It is completely up to you. This is what we love, is that we're able to tap into the creativity of our audience, So, in saying that, there's a link in the description to our Discord server. Please join it. Enter into the flag competition. This year, well, we are looking at trying to make the prize a little bit better than last year. Would you say that's right, Radical Liberation? Well,
we'll see, but yeah, we're collecting our storing up the shekels, seeing what we can come up with this year.
Exactly. So we're trying to make this worth your while. This is just a fun way for everyone to get involved in the community, to have a bit of a laugh, and to come up with something truly brilliant. And just a bit of fun. Obviously, we have some very silly designs, as the ones we see here, but we also have some serious designs.
I just had to go back and comment here, Mad Merc. Look at this effect. I don't know if you can see it if you're on a smaller screen, but there's some sort of fabric effect here. And then on this next one, well, like a texture to it. And on this next one, you get a little bit of like the flag is draped a little, right? A little bit of folds in the cloth. That's pretty slick stuff. That's taking it to the next level there.
Someone really wants to win. But yes, we have some very good designs that are being entered. Please, if you think you don't have these sorts of skills, look, we literally, if you would go back up to some of the previous designs, we've literally had people enter in designs that are hand drawn, and they've just taken pictures of. We're not judging.
This is a favorite one. Somebody basically drew this and colored it with crayons. It looks like. I love it, and I love it.
Yeah, we get what they're trying to do, if you're limited by your actual abilities, we'll give it a bit of leeway because we get what
Yeah.
you're trying to do.
Right.
And we just want you to get involved. We want you to be a part of this community. And it's a way that we give back to you because you have given us. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be at the stage of upgrading the show and changing a whole heap of aspects behind the scenes that will hopefully improve the show for you guys. So please get involved. Join the Discord server. Have a chat to people on there. If you think that there might be creative people who want to get involved in this and who are kind of looking around in this sphere, share it with them. And this is just, we want to say thank you. And this is the best way I think we can say thank you is getting everyone involved and handing out some prizes. And with that, let's get back to the show.
Yep. I notice our member counter on the Discord is at 622. So that is amazing. We've got quite a good group of folks in the Discord.
And we get to 666.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't going to say it. Okay, so let's, let me move this over here to avoid the horrible infinite effect and share my browser, and let's get into some stories here. Right, so Econ Minis, we feel free on the other shows tend to sort of go between theory and history, economic theory and economic history. Let's see, that's the one I want. But on Econ Minis, we feel free to, with an eye towards economic history and theory, do a little bit of application to current events. So let's see here. I think I actually want to start with this story you brought up, which we're looking at inflation, meaning both money inflation and price inflation. But there's another trend going on that probably isn't completely disconnected from the inflation trend, right, Matt Merck? Which is some rising spending from states, from governments, which we've highlighted. I think we've been showing some of that over the past, during 2020, we've been trying to give snapshots of growth in money supply, growth in government spending, and so forth. But this one's interesting in particular. So Matt Merck, tell us about this.
Right. As people know, I'm a bit of a geopol wonk, and I like to keep on top of that sort of realm of news and what's happening where and why. But what we're finding is because everything is becoming more crazy, and because the floodgates have opened when it comes to government spending, since 2019, 2020, military spending has been going up quite significantly. Obviously, we know that tensions around the world are rising, and we should all be aware of that and all keep an eye on that for not just our own security, but the security of our friends and family. And we are seeing that in 2020, military spending, if you have a look at the graph there, is going up at a predictable rate, but it's starting to go a bit higher than what its previous growth has been. So the 2021 is quite a little bit more than the 2019 one, which was quite a little bit more than 2018 one. And
now,
with
this
some of the
goes to
announcements,
2020, right? This particular article,
right, and
it's a 2021 article, but they only have numbers up to 2020. So, yeah,
correct. And from what I'm seeing around the world, with 2021 and how it's going, I would suggest that this graph is not going to change. It's going up.
It's going to keep going up
again,
at least on trend of what we see here for the last about 5 years. It looks like starting around 2015 up to 2020, you see an increase every year. Right.
And again, this is a multitude of factors. The floodgates have obviously been opened when it comes to this expansion of the money supply. We see the tensions around the world are rising, especially between the major empires and their sphere and their countries within their spheres. So obviously, the United States, China, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran, France. We see a lot of these nations are starting to uh, look at each other with a bit of side eye and saying, what are we doing here? What's going on here?" So we have tensions around the world rising, and new technology is on the market these days, and everyone is operating on last gen tech, as far as I can tell. Although there are exceptions in a few departments in several militaries. Um, well, yes, India as well. Sorry, I totally forgot. Anyway, I just thought that this was something that everyone should be aware of. Everyone should just keep an eye on. We did a show previously on the military industrial complex and corporate welfare and the use of mercenaries taking over other roles.
Yeah,
So
right.
these may not even be the full numbers when it comes to military spending.
Mm.
So
Yeah, the point
let's
point of
just
you
keep an
bringing
eye on
the
this.
point of
Let's
you bring
just
up the point of you bring up the mercenaries, right, Mad Merc, is that it it can be a way of sort of having people in region off the books, so to speak. They say, yeah, we don't have as many U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan or whatever. Meanwhile, they have even more mercenaries that are in the pay of the United States government, right, and are effectively the same thing. It's just a sort of a different way to do the accounting and a way to advertise back home. Yeah, we don't have so many boots on the ground anymore. When in fact we have more boots on the ground than ever. It's just that they're not official U.S. military. So in a similar way, I think the point of you bringing this up is, in a similar way, what we might be looking at here is sort of official military expenditure. Robert Higgs emphasized this. He said how much spending in the United States from like the Department of Energy, and he listed off like all these different things. He says a bunch of them are doing military spending too, but it isn't counted as military spending because it's not spending by the Air Force or by the Army, even though its purpose is military, right?
correct. Probably not the example I would use in regards to Afghanistan with recent events.
Oh, okay.
However,
Sorry.
yes, the essential point that you are making is fundamentally correct. It's an accounting trick. Let's put it that way. It's a PR trick. The effect, the outcome, the effect is the same. It's just it will cost you more because mercenaries are far better paid than the military staff. Um, Again, there's a whole debate around whether mercenaries are worth it and their effectiveness, and there are points on both sides. But I just thought that this was something that we should all be keeping an eye on.
Yep.
We warned about inflation, and inflation is here. Well, let's keep an eye on this military spending, because with the
Yep.
way the world is going, I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. It could be potentially a leading indicator, right? You see the spending first, and
Correct.
then you see, yeah, what happens with all that stuff they spent money on. Hey, we had a really good question, and part of the reason I tried to get the graph to be bigger on screen is because you can see the answer on the graph, but let's just talk about it a moment. Progstay says, has it ever gone down at all, the military spending? Well, this is, remember, world military expenditure, 1988 to 2020. And I do see a dip. It looks like that is about, there's a local peak at about 2011. And then it goes down for 1, 2, 3 years. So that's 2012, 2013, 2014. Then it jumps up and has been going up ever since about 2014, 2015, or 2015, I guess. So yes, world military expenditure actually went down. I mean, not dramatically. It didn't cut in half, right? But at least it was a downward trend for several years, and now it's on an upward trend again for the last 5 years or
Yeah,
6 years, right?
I would say that certain nations obviously have an outsized effect than others, depending on how much they spend on their militaries.
Right.
So
Right.
if the United States was to, if the United States or China or Russia were to decrease military spending, then they would have an outsized effect than someone who, like, uh, uh, I don't know, Bangladesh or Uganda decreased their military spending. It's just the raw numbers of the matter. So, yes, my suggestion there would be that probably the type of left wing governments you got during the early teens of the 2010s,
Mhm.
you know, you got Obama in power. You have, and he's obviously trying to pull out of Syria at this point and decrease the military spending, but then has to go back in and increase his military spending to more than ever at that point. You have different governments in Europe who are decreasing their military spending, and this was a thing that Trump railed on about when he came into power. Obviously, the 2% from NATO. You have a variety of factors here. Again, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I will leave up to the audience.
Yeah, so you're right. If you can see in the chart, it's all blues, so it makes it a little hard to distinguish. But the big bar, the biggest portion of this is that lightest blue on the bottom of the vertical bars, and that is the Americas, by which we can probably read the United States military budget is, most of that big bar, right? One suspects. And so if you focus just on that light colored bar, you can see that around that year, it dipped from, about 2010, it looks like was the local height for America's spending. It goes down, 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 bottoms out around 2015, 16, starts going up again. Meanwhile, it looks like other people's spending, Asia's spending has been going up throughout this period. So it's Asia spending growing, and then the U.S. spending starting to go back up around the time of, Trump. Yeah, well, he did say he was going to spend big on the military, and I guess that's one promise he kept. Okay, yeah, one more thing at the article. I think you said it, but it talked about the top spenders, didn't it? Am I missing this? Oh, yeah, here we go. The 5 biggest spenders in 2020, which together accounted for 62% of global military expenditure, were, I assume this is in order, number 1, United States, no shocker. Number 2, China. Number 3, India, which I think you expressed surprise at that as well. I do not pay as much attention to India-Pakistan tensions and all that. But India beats Russia in terms of
I'm not.
United
I'm
Kingdom,
not.
number 5.
I am not surprised at India. Sorry. It totally slipped my mind. Again, operating on 3 hours of sleep here.
Yep. Yeah, India's a little closer to your neighborhood than mine, so you probably know a little more about what's going on there. Okay, so that's military spending. Now, here's the plan for the rest of the show. Ready? Real simple. One article from Mises.org on inflation, which brings up some interesting points that I hadn't seen anywhere else. And then, as the show title promised, want to talk a little bit about what's been going on with Bitcoin, but I think it gives us an opportunity to delve into some interesting topics and educate ourselves a bit. So first of all, I'm not sharing all my articles. Try to footnote our streams here. There's the article on military spending. And then here's the Mises.org article that I'd like to now go through. This is not a lengthy article, and it's very good. I think I'm going to have to try to get this guy on the show at some point, Matt Merck, because I keep on finding his articles and finding that they're really well done and interesting, well written. Daniel, I'm going to say Lacal. I'm probably butchering his name, but Daniel Lacal. And this is just from 2 days ago. It's at Mises.org. It's called Investors Won't Buy the Transitory Inflation Line. So I'm just going to read bits and comment as we go. Stop me, Mad Merck, if you want to throw something in. He says, the Federal Reserve and European Central Bank repeat that the recent inflation spike is transitory. The problem is that investors do not buy it. Inflation is always
Stop.
monetary. Oh, okay, go.
I fundamentally believe that there are a portion of investors, as a larger portion than what we are willing to admit, do believe this. I think they are
They
they
actually
are
listen to the
hook,
Fed.
line, and sinker. Yeah, they are hook, line, and sinker. Uh, Believe that the Fed and this is, we call it mainstream economics for a reason. And it's mainstream because it's the mainstream. It's what everyone knows. So I think there is a large percentage of people who do believe it.
Right.
Now,
Yeah,
I would
so
say,
to be clear about what you're
on
saying, like the financial press, right? The financial press is there. There are some great exceptions. Grant, what's his name? Anyway, there's some great exceptions here and there, but by and large, if you go to your random financial press article, you're going to get mainstream econ, as well as they're able to understand it, and parroting of the Federal Reserve and stuff like that, right?
right. I was listening to a podcast the other day, just last night while I was working. I forget the name of it, but they were talking about how some higher members of the Fed said the hinted at the possibility of having a discussion to make a plan about the the buying habits of the Fed in the bond market. And this sent shockwaves, and I saw this. They brought up article after article about how investors were excited that the Fed was changing policy and or shifting its gears, and but all that was being said was they were hinting that they were considering that they were maybe going to bring up in the meeting that they should make a plan, perhaps change tack at some point in the future. That's not a plan. That's not action. And yet, they went through article after article showing how the financial press lapped this up and bought it and saying this is amazing. We should be very excited about this. And obviously, while we do hate the mainstream media, they are still a very powerful force. They are not dead. They are respected. So I think we need to understand that there is only going to be a certain section of investors, and these are probably the smarter investors, who understand what we're talking about here and understand what the article is talking about here. That's the only point I wanted to make. Please continue.
Yeah. No, well, you're right. It's frightening to think, but there are people who probably even are institutional investors that they're responsible for our retirement money and stuff like that, right? That don't understand Austrian economics. It's scary to think. Okay.
Well, you guys are lucky. I'm mandated by the government to have superannuation. I can't not have superannuation, so I have to have it. Superannuation is like your 401ks or your pension linked funds. I have to have that according to the government. So I don't get to choose what I do with my money. I have to. My employer has to, at the end of every paycheck, set aside. I think it's 9%. Yeah, 9% of.
Okay, so it's not only enforced retirement savings, but they even control where that goes, and you don't get to say, "Hey, I want to put that 9% in gold or Bitcoin or this stock or something," right?
Yeah.
Got it.
I can manage my own superannuation fund, but I essentially need to set up my own sort of company to do that.
So not an option available to most normal people. That's terrible, by the way, what you just told me about. Anyway, learn something new and bad every day. Okay, what does he say next? Yeah, inflation is always a monetary phenomenon, and this time is no different. What central banks call transitory effects and the impact of supply chains are not the real drivers of inflationary pressures. No one can deny, obviously with 2020 and the pandemic and everything, right, and lockdowns, more specifically lockdowns, No one can deny certain supply shock impacts, but the correlation and extent of the increase in prices of agricultural and industrial commodities to 5-year highs, as well as the abrupt rise of non-replicable goods and services to decades, have monetary policy to blame. Injecting trillions of liquidity makes more funds chase fewer goods, and the rise in the real inflation perceived by citizens is much larger than the official CPI. Now, let me see if I can find it. Bloomberg just gave us a great data point here. Canada CPI is up 3.4% from a year ago. Fuel prices are 62% up on a year ago. So those numbers are very different. Worth thinking about. Okay. Take food prices.
Cantillon affects people. Cantillon
yeah, exactly. Take food prices. The United Nations Food Price Index is up 30% in the past 5 years and up 10% year to date as of April 2021. The rise in food prices already caused protests all over the world in 2018, and it continues to reach new highs. The correlation in the price increase of most agricultural goods also shows that it is a monetary effect. So why is he saying that it's a monetary effect? Well, this is one of the first things I learned reading Rothbard writing about the Great Depression. Rothbard has a book analyzing the Great Depression that is strongly recommended. Is it called The Great Depression? I'm sorry, I'm not remembering the exact title, but it's easy to find. He wrote it early in his career, around the time he wrote Man, Economy, and State.
Sorry, is that Rothbard or is that Murray?
Murray Rothbard.
Murphy, sorry, not Murray. Jesus.
No, not Bob Murphy.
No,
Murphy. He might have one too. He might have one too. In fact, let me just go ahead and share. I think he does. Let me go ahead and share a link. It's called America's Great Depression by Murray Rothbard. One of the first points he makes that is so helpful when thinking about this stuff, everybody, is he says, look, yes, there are, supply shocks. There are, tragedies and disasters, the flooding of New Orleans. And he says, and you will see the price system adjust, where there's a hurricane or a disaster or something, you'll see prices briefly shoot up because suddenly certain things are in great demand, food, water that you can drink, stuff like this suddenly becomes really valuable local to where that is happening. And similarly, certain industries might have a shock, and so you'll see some price changes around that industry. That is completely different from what we're talking about when we talk about a general price inflation, okay, or a boom or a bust. These are not restricted to a certain location or to New Orleans and the surrounding area or to one industry. What marks these things out as different and requiring a different kind of explanation is that they're general, is that they're all over the place. You're seeing price increases everywhere throughout the country, maybe everywhere throughout the world, right? And it's not just in one industry. It's across all kinds of industries that have almost nothing to do with each other in some cases. How can you explain that with something that happened in one place or in one industry? Well, you can't. It just doesn't make any sense. And that's your first clue to point you in the direction that Austrians analyze, right? Which is that you need to look for something that's affecting everybody across locations, across industries. And what's something that we all deal with? Money, right? Money is the opposite side of basically just about every transaction in a modern economy, right? One person's selling a service or a good, the other person's handing them money. Well, if the money gets played with, that's something that can have a general widespread effect, right? Actually, I think I might have anticipated a point he's going to make. But anyway, you get the idea. So the correlation in the price increase of most agricultural goods shows that it is a monetary effect. So with my explanation there hopefully helps you see what he's getting at in that sentence. The same can be said about the Bloomberg Commodity Index, which is also at 5-year highs and up 15% year to date. Yes, there have been some supply disruptions in a few commodities, but it is not widespread, let alone the norm. And now here's the point. This is part of the reason I wanted to read this whole thing out. Listen to this. I hadn't caught this before. I hadn't cottoned onto this. If anything can be said, it's that the rise in agricultural and industrial commodities prices is happening despite the persistent overcapacity that many of these industries had already before the pandemic. We should also remember that one of the unintended consequences of massive monetary expansion is perpetuation of overcapacity, right? When you have monetary expansion, the boom, it doesn't allow, it prevents correction, right? So when he says there's overcapacity, he says where the economy is investing too much in certain sectors and it's not correcting because they just keep pumping the money. So you never get the correction, right? Excess capacity is refinanced and maintained even in crisis times. Therefore, we can argue that the rising cost of goods is not coming predominantly from supply shortages, but in an environment of extended overcapacity, making it even more evidently a monetary phenomenon. So they're making too much and prices are still going up. Well, that's makes you smell, that's a red flag, right? Because generally, simple supply and demand, the supply increases, price should go down. He's saying we're getting overcapacity, a lot of supply, and prices are going up instead of down. Well, how do you explain that? Well, it's a lot of dollars chasing the goods that are out there, right? We can discuss the numerous. Go ahead.
We often discuss how when the government interferes with the market, it usually distributes resources to less efficient and less needed areas of the economy. Makes it less efficient. It's a drag on the economy. It's the same. It's the same with this until you get the correction. You're going to see areas of the economy have shortages, and you're going to see areas of the economy have overproduction. Radlab, I believe you bring up the example of each member of your family got government distributed cheese. Isn't this correct?
Wait, what'd you say about government cheese?
Didn't your family get government cheese? You told us once or
yeah, we
or
ended
once or
up with
twice.
some for some reason. I don't remember why. It was just they had so much of it. It just everybody got some,
Right, exactly, right. And we hear this about, in Europe they have a mountain of butter that they've just dumped in the
right.
dumped out there in the middle of the wild because they've
wine.
overproduced. Yep,
I've heard about
the wine rivers.
Well. Yep.
Milk, strawberries. You have these distortions on the economy because of the government. Because in a market you wouldn't see this because obviously if you wasted resources like that, you would not be in business very long. So you have to understand if supply is going up, it could be because of an incentivization due to a new subsidization or a government mandate, and prices are going up. We see that the problem here can be clearly demonstrated that there is an increase in the money supply. There is an increase. There is inflation.
Right. Now, he goes on to spend a paragraph talking about the CPI and how it's governments disguise the rising costs in the CPI. We actually spent some time recently talking about that with an article or a chapter of a book he's working on by Bob Murphy. So I'm not going to go through that now, but hopefully everybody in our audience knows that the CPI understates inflation. He says the reality is that the correlation in price moves and the aggressiveness of such changes show that most developed nations' central banks simply will not change the course of monetary policy. We know that central banks do not change course, even if inflation is high and persistent, because we have seen it in numerous countries and almost every Southern European nation before the euro. Right, and I got to get a little taste of this first time I was in Europe, which was 1987. While the Soviet Union was still around, by the way. So I was in Western Europe. And I remember going to Italy, and it felt like monopoly money, or maybe more than that, because of the lira. This was prior to Italy joining the euro, and I'd buy a book for 12,000 lira or 50,000 lira. I don't remember the numbers anymore, but it was funny. Almost, it's like, well, we're rich and we're spending all this thousands and tens of thousands of lira to buy a chocolate bar, and he's saying that even in that scenario, with that persistent price inflation and the crazy prices in lira, Italian lira, the Italian central bank continued its policy, right? So price inflation does not serve as a check on the central bank, he's saying, because we've watched them continue to increase the money supply despite price inflation. Governments always justify printing more money with the excuse that there is no inflation. When inflation rises, they say it is transitory. When inflation soars, governments blame businesses and shop owners, presenting themselves as the solution with price controls. That caught my attention there because just recently on Twitter, I think I had shared it wasn't even that they were doing price controls. It was just that the idea was being brought up. Maybe we should do price controls. And I was like, there we go. That's what comes next. Here's your staged process, right? Increase the money supply. Then eventually it shows up in price inflation. Sometimes it takes a while, depending on various factors. Eventually it shows up in price inflation. And then there's calls for price controls. Whether the governments actually do price controls is a political matter, right? But at least you'll see calls for them and maybe even actually putting in price control. Central banks are unable to normalize policy. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, it's such a horrible thing to witness because it's subsidize these businesses, distort the price system, inflate the money supply, have all these hands on the economy to change everything, and then say, well, this economy isn't working. Why is it so distorted? We got to have price controls. That'll fix it.
Right.
It's so disgusting.
Yeah. It's frustrating, and it's so predictable. There's a book the Mises Institute has, I believe, and it's like 2,000 years of price inflation or something like that, and it talks about the Roman Empire, and there's a long history. I mean, we've been through this over and over and over again across multiple empires that are no longer even remembered anymore. I mean, it just goes on and on. They never learn. Central banks are unable to normalize policy, even with the evidence of a strong recovery, because they are hostage to governments that simply refuse to reduce deficit spending, while they cannot tolerate even a small rise in bond yields. So this whole notion, he's laughing at this notion, right, that you have an independent central bank and it operates according to the Keynesian idea of, we had to do this while we were in trouble, but now we're having a recovery, so now we're going to back off and go to a normal policy. And meanwhile, the government's like, sorry, you can't do that. I've got too much debt. You'll kill me if you do that. Investors know this and are looking for ways to protect their clients' savings from inflation and an even more likely concern, stagflation. That means high inflation and high unemployment. A rising number of funds are looking at a highly likely risk of stagnation after the chain of stimuli, but with rising prices. Official CPI may not reflect the rise in healthcare, education, fresh food prices, and rent, but citizens feel it. There is a reason why in 2018, 2019, we saw protests against the intolerable rise in cost of living all over Europe and emerging markets, at the same time as central banks warned of the risk of deflation. The real cost of living is rising faster than what the official calculations suggest. It was a problem in 2018, and it is an even larger problem after 2020. So, excellent article by him. In fact, I'll share it again so that you definitely have it. All right, shall we move on to Bitcoin?
Well, from line go up to line crash down.
Right, yes. I've got a chart here. Hopefully, I wish the line was thicker. I don't think there's a way to fix that. Wait. Oh, line area. There we go. That makes it visible. Whee! Okay, I've selected a 1 year because I want to put it in perspective. because the thing to remember about Bitcoin is that its overall trend has been up, but there's some dramatic ups and downs in the meantime. And if I extend it, in fact, let's go out to 5 years for a moment. Extend it out to 5 years, and you can see.
Do you have 20? When was the first big spike? I think in 2010 was the first big spike.
This chart only goes to 2015. Sorry, it's as much as I got.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, so anyway, there's the 1 year. So bear in mind that it's shot up in starting around, I guess the most dramatic was around December of 2020. So not that long ago. 5 months? 5 months ago, it really started to spike up and drop down, spike up, drop down. So, it's had a dramatic, let's go to the 6 months view. There we go. It's had a dramatic 6 months. So when you see it bop down to from a recent high of $58,800 US dollars per Bitcoin to right now it's in the $40,000 per Bitcoin range, have some perspective. Nevertheless, that is quite a drop even compared to some of these other little valleys you see previously. So what is going on? There's two things that jumped out to me. Happy to be told more. Part of the reason to talk about all this stuff is to get insight from other folks who know other angles. But here's one. A plan from Joe Biden to raise capital gains tax. And the claim here in this Newsweek article is that sent Bitcoin tumbling once this plan was announced. Now, why would that be? It's because they're viewing Bitcoin as a speculative. They're not treating it as money, right? Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has called Bitcoin a highly speculative asset and proposed a capital gains tax as high as 80% for crypto trading. So you do get to make money. You buy low, sell high on Bitcoin, you get to make money, but if the government has anything to do, knows about it, they're going to want to hit you for up to 80% potentially on any gains you make, right? From doing that. Well, that makes it a lot less exciting to buy Bitcoin from a speculative point of view. And so the argument in this article is that it's taking a hit. But nice segue here. He says, meanwhile, China continues to move forward with testing its digital yuan and went as far as saying that cryptocurrencies can be treated as investment alternatives. And then, I don't know, he's quoting here. Somebody said the contrast is stark and may have profound implications for future development of the economy in the United States and China. These are two very different stands between the top economies in the world. So the US taking this sort of anti-crypto stand with arguing for high capital gains tax, and China saying, hey, no, cryptocurrencies are great. Well, let's turn now, didn't take long. This is April 23rd. Now let's turn to May 19th, less than a month later.
Yeah.
China bans financial payment institutions from cryptocurrency business.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think what you're finding is that China initially were open to it, and then they really kind of dug in and found out what it was about. And the crypto guys are not hiding a lot. Strategically, the crypto guys are kind of dumb. They don't hide what crypto is for. They openly say it is meant to be an alternative to fiat currency. And with an economy like China, that cannot stand. So my guess here is that they kind of got wise within a month, basically. Was it a month? What was the date on that? Sorry.
This was this story is from yesterday.
Okay, yeah. So they got pretty wise pretty quick on what the crypto guys were trying to do. My opinion is that we've talked about previously on the show about digital fiat currencies. A lot of the process in the financial market is already just digital, but digital fiat currencies, as using blockchain and all this sort of stuff, I wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, and they will ban every other alternative as they are saying it's not legal tender. They're saying it's a speculative asset at the moment, but I would not be surprised if this changes. And if it is called an illegal currency, because you are only allowed to trade in legal tender in the boundaries of the United States or China or Europe or whatever, and it breaks the law, right? So you're not allowed to have a competing currency. As far as the speculative aspect of Bitcoin, um, I doubt that the reason people were dumping Bitcoin is because of the announcements from China or the United States at this present moment. I think it's more to do that, unfortunately, the Bitcoin community is really they have a few idols. So like Elon Musk is one, a few other investors are one ones, and they're really much driven by, unfortunately, emotion, especially the people who really don't understand what Bitcoin is about and just see it as like a quick money thing. Um, they are really driven as emotion, and it's just disappointing to see, one tweet from one person can actually change the price of crypto so much. You should have enough faith. If you don't have enough faith in your asset, that one tweet can change your world and you're willing to sell, um, I don't think you understood the point of it in the first place, and that's unfortunate. You're gonna see a lot of people sell, and they're gonna miss out.
Before I turn to understanding what China's up to here, a comment from Mickey, our friend Mickey, on the U.S. side. U.S. Treasury has called for all transactions of Bitcoin over $10,000 to be reported to the IRS as means to combat illegal activity today. Oh, okay. So this might be breaking news. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, transactions of Bitcoin that count for over $10,000. That's what, currently 1/4 of a Bitcoin. Not that long ago, that was 1/6 of a Bitcoin. So that cuts out a lot of stuff. That makes a lot of Bitcoin transactions suddenly get reported to the IRS, right? Which is discouraging.
Right.
To U.S. activity. Thanks, Mickey.
I know. Yeah, thank you, Mickey. I know that people, especially some of the Bitcoin bears, have been saying, see, this is the problem with Bitcoin. You lose everything. You should buy other stable assets like commodities or bonds or physical assets like land. Um, my again, we saw this with 2010, 09, 2010. Bitcoin went up, had a high period, and then went down and stabilized at that 4,000, which is higher than its previous bottom, right? And we're seeing it now, where Bitcoin's gone up. It was at 6,000, I think. Was it 6,000, 4,000? What was it before the big leap? I know we went over it before, but
Well, how far back are you wanting to go here?
just before the huge rise that's happened within
Bitcoin?
the last 2 years.
So
Yeah.
I'll take a low point that's quite recently. November 25th, it was at 17,000 per Bitcoin.
Right. Okay. So, you had these lows, and then So before the big spike there, what was it? Just
Way back, like 5 years ago,
before the big spike.
In 2016. Oh, I'm sorry, just before the recent, the last 6 months spike.
The recent one. Yeah.
Oh, that's what I was telling you. It was in the, well, if you go back to August, it's like $10,000, right? August of last year.
Okay, so we could be seeing it just like in previous spikes. It come down and have this new stabilization. Now, does this mean that Bitcoin is worthless? No, I don't think so. It just means that it may be a time to buy, it may be time to sell. It's up to you. And again, we are not financial. This is not financial advice. Don't come to the show for financial advice. Do your own research.
Yeah.
But it could be a new floor, and then in the next crash, which could be happening soon, you could make bank again if you buy at that low period. Again,
Right.
not financial advice. Do your own research. We're not suggesting that this will happen or that it is a certainty, but it is a possibility.
So let's look at the China story real quick. What does this ban mean precisely? It says China has banned financial institutions and payment companies from providing services related to cryptocurrency transactions and warned investors against speculative crypto trading. Such institutions, banks, online payments channels must not offer clients any service including cryptocurrencies such as registration, trading, clearing, and settlement. It has banned crypto exchanges and initial coin offerings, but has not barred individuals from holding cryptocurrencies. So they're not outright trying to get rid of the cryptos, but they're limiting they're limiting how much institutional support there is for cryptocurrencies, right? Because what you find out if you're involved in the financial industry is that there's the thing itself, like corn, right? And then there's corn futures and corn options, and there's a whole infrastructure, in a corn trading floor, a pit for buying and selling corn. There's this whole financial infrastructure that builds up around something. Well, that, as we'll see in a moment, has been building up around Bitcoin in the United States, for example, and China's kind of nipping it in the bud and saying, well, you can hold it, but we don't want a financial industry to build around this thing. That's what I'm seeing here. It says in 2017, this is not the first time they've done something like this. In 2017, China shut down its local cryptocurrency exchanges, smothering a speculative market that had accounted for 90% of global Bitcoin trading. So this is the difference between the market and governments, by the way. The market's like, wow, people really like buying and selling Bitcoin. Let's make sure to help them do that. The government goes, wow, people really like buying and selling Bitcoin. Let's shut it down.
It's a threat, though. It's a threat, and these are people who are obsessed with the maintenance of stability and power.
Right.
The stability being that they keep in power. So, if you have, especially in China, where, come on, we know for a fact that China manipulates its statistics. We know for a fact that China is most definitely not a free nation when it comes to expression and what they are able to do, although in some aspects they are freer, and I use that term loosely, than other nations around the world who purport to be free. I think what you're going to see in the long term with Bitcoin is that it will have to be a fully underground method of transaction, and people will have to be incredibly careful about how they exchange Bitcoin. So, for example, if you say I'm selling shirts for $1, but in the description before you sell me the shirt, you send me a message. It's like, okay, well, it's actually not $1. It's like 0.0005 of a Bitcoin. That's the real price. I just do $1 so the government keeps off my tail, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a future where Bitcoin is banned, and I do that exchange, and it's on the ledger and everything. The government may start to get suspicious if you're selling shirts for $1. They may be looking at that like, why is that happening? How is that? Where is that shirt going? Let's just have a look. And because these are when it comes to the enforcement of rules, these people are not dumb. You have to understand that you will be operating as basically a counterfeiter or someone who is destabilizing the integrity of the economy in the eyes of these people. So just be prepared to have a little bit of a think about how transactions can be made with cryptocurrency if that's the method of alternative purchase you want to use, because there are ways to track people.
Right. So I guess I will read one more paragraph from this article about China. It says the statement from the Bank of China, I think, in 2019 also highlighted the risks of cryptocurrency trading, saying virtual currencies are not supported by real value, their prices are easily manipulated, and trading contracts are not protected by Chinese law. So just illustrating a little bit of what you were saying about how they view things. Now, with a great last minute comment right before the show from someone who goes by the Black Horse on Twitter. I want to take this down another direction real quick. He said he's going to miss the show, but don't miss out on the effect of creating a large derivative market for Bitcoin between the last Bitcoin crash and this one. Very different price behavior this time versus a few years ago. Interesting case study. Okay, now I have not done that exact comparison he's talking about, but I did want to take the opportunity to explain what he means by a large derivative market. So I found this Bitcoin Market Journal. Let me share this article. Bitcoin Derivatives Explained, a guide to trading crypto derivatives in 2020. So there's two things to highlight. As I said, you get a whole infrastructure in the financial market around something like Bitcoin. It says, in the past 10 years, the Bitcoin trading ecosystem has evolved into a mature market with a range of financial products and derivatives based on the world's first decentralized digital currency. Here's a complete list of Bitcoin derivatives. Now, I'm not going to go through all this, but I want to highlight sort of two of the basic derivatives you should have some kind of understanding of if you can. Futures and options. So Bitcoin futures. A Bitcoin future obliges the holder to buy or sell Bitcoin at a predefined price and a specific date in the future. Okay. So if I hold a buy contract, that means at a certain date, I'm going to buy 2 Bitcoin or 5 Bitcoin or whatever at, $40,000 a Bitcoin or something like that. So why would you do such a thing? Well, futures were primarily used to hedge commodity positions. They've since turned into popular investment vehicles for speculators, most noticeably because investors who want to go short an asset can sell futures to do so. Right. So to go short means that you think the price is going to go down. So let's see if I can get this right. That means that you're going to want to sell futures contracts that say, I will buy that Bitcoin at this low price in the future, which you think it's going to go down to. Somebody sells some current Bitcoin. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to step through the whole way it works, but the net result of this is that if you are right and Bitcoin goes down in the period of time that you expected it to, then you can make a real killing selling Bitcoin.
Putting the complicated method behind the effect is that you can bet on a stock going down and make money on it. That is the effect. Don't worry about the process of it. We can go into that later. But
yeah.
Just understand that is the effect.
Right. And with Bitcoin going up and down like crazy, as we saw, every month or two, it seems there's some big price adjustment. There's opportunity for people to, buy Bitcoin and go long on Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin in the expectation it goes up. Lots of people are doing that, I think. But also go short, set up your Bitcoin futures when you think there's going to be a dip and sell on the dip, right? Or I'm sorry, you have to time it with a futures contract. So that's futures, and Bitcoin futures can be traded on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, also known as CME, which is, I think, probably the largest commodities exchange in the world, and deals with derivatives like futures, options, spreads, and so forth. So that's what Black Horse was talking about there's developed a whole market around this. Yeah, Shadow of Saint Satoshi says, if you don't know what you're doing, be careful. Right, yeah, futures are particularly scary because you can win if it goes down, but if it goes up, there is no limit to your loss. So futures are really crazy. So options sound a little more sane to me. A Bitcoin option gives the trader the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell Bitcoin at a specific price at a predefined time in the future. So that's why it's called an option. You're buying the option to buy or sell at a certain time at a certain price. And so, of course, you only exercise it if you're going to make money by exercising the option. If you don't, then, well, you're out the price of the option. So yeah, he says this is a great way to hedge your digital asset portfolio, and explains a bit about that. And then also how you can use options to bet on, he says, on the price of Bitcoin mooning in the coming months. This would make more sense if I knew what the prices were back when this article was written. This article is December 5th, 2019. So he talks about the crazy price of Bitcoin hitting $14,000 or $15,000. And of course, even on the dip, Bitcoin is at $40,000 right now. So it's hard to use actual prices in an article about Bitcoin and not have it age really badly, really quickly. Yeah. And he talks about some other things: perpetual futures, binary options, variance swaps. Gets beyond what I understand. I barely understand futures and options, but so futures, you are obligated to do the buy or sell at the certain price at a certain time. Options give you the option to exercise that at a certain time in the future. So these are two things that have built up.
Sorry,
my course is saying that we should look at the effect of these things on the dip in prices, and I don't know what that effect is. So, go ahead.
Yeah, just to why do people do futures? It's just a form of security. So if you can secure a price of something in the future, and if you don't know what's happening around the world, it could be really bad for you. It could be really good for you. But at the end of the day, you at least have a price you know that you're going to be working with, and it gives you that security to plan for the future. That's really what that its function has. Just so people understand. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's see here. Let me get a current, an up to the moment price. Refresh my screen here. $40,253. And now here is Bitcoin futures at cmegroup.com. For some reason, this chart they have December 2020. Don't know why that is, but you can go to the Bitcoin. Oops, sorry. I wanted to go to. I did have, yeah, Bitcoin futures. And here we see that it's Bitcoin futures is at 40,415. What did I say that current price was? 40,253. So Bitcoin futures looks like there's a bet for Bitcoin to go up from where it is right now. And then here we can see a chart of the daily commodity futures price chart up to the minute. Let me refresh to make sure it's nice and current. And of course, it's going to move to some degree along with just the market price of Bitcoin. So you can see a recent dip starting around, what is that, May 10th or something. You start to see the price of Bitcoin futures drop from the like 56,000 range, 57 down to in the 40s. Okay, so anyway, I thought that was a very interesting direction that Black Horse sent us in. I am not in a position to take it all the way. I wasn't able to take it all the way to what he suggests, which is to compare the last Bitcoin crash, last Bitcoin dip, and this one. And he says you get very different price So would like to hear more from him about what he's seeing on that. But at least I think we're in a position to understand once someone shows us that, we understand something about that there's this Bitcoin derivatives market, right? On top of just the regular buying and selling of Bitcoins, people are also buying and selling Bitcoin futures, Bitcoin options. All right, so that's all I had for today, Mad Merc. To actually have a mini that's closer to the time frame that we originally were going to have these at, which we've tended to go over lately. Okay to do tips and super chats?
Yes, please, gentlemen and ladies. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Let us use our other platforms, our alternatives to Google, our alternatives to Super Chats. If you are so inclined to give us a tip, please use Subscribestar, not Super Chats. Mickey, I'm looking at you. You know better. Use
and we have more
Subscribestar.
I did finally, I think, get set up with, oh shoot, I forgot the name of it. What is it, Mad Merc? The other platform
Entropy.
we're going to use. Entropy, yeah. We had a little, I had to get an account thing cleared up with the owners over there, but we should be ready to go with that. I just haven't done the final setup to feature it. Hopefully I'll have that for next week.
And we are on other platforms as well. We are on, what are they on? Are we on Library? Odyssey?
Yep. Yeah,
and
I
Rumble?
think our videos are uploading to Odyssey. I'm not sure. I think there I would have to see in terms of current videos appearing there. Odyssey is the one I feel pretty certain is actually working right now, where the uploads are going to it. I should check that. Okay, so I think I get to catch a few super chats. Oh, I get to catch a lot of them. Okay. We got that one from Mickey. Here's one from Coney. I'm not going to miss the first one. I see that. It's just I can't display it on the screen, so I'll read it. Coney says, what will this do to privacy coins like Monero? And he said that about 20 minutes ago.
Because Coney could be using it for nefarious. I've seen his face somewhere before. This Coney fellow. It's something about 2012. No, privacy coins like Monero. I've never actually heard of Monero. Have you heard of Monero?
No, it says Monero is a privacy-focused cryptocurrency released in 2014. Open source protocol uses an obfuscated ledger, meaning anyone can send or broadcast transactions, but no outside observer can tell the source, amount, or destination. Oh, that's pretty cool. Because right now, if you make a Bitcoin transaction from a wallet and people can track down who made that transaction, anything else you do from that wallet, they can now connect to you, right? So Monero tries to address that. But yeah, I do not know if you'd be protected with that kind of privacy from the capital gains taxes that are being proposed by the Biden administration. That is a very good question. I don't know the answer.
Monero's gone down. I'm just having a look on some charts here. Monero's down significantly. So if that sounds interesting to you guys, might be a good time to just have a look at it.
Okay, and then Jerome Powell, chair of the Federal Reserve, Mickey says, Powell also said today that the Fed is looking to creating its own digital currency because they are not convenient to payment due to swings in value. Right, so the idea is Bitcoin's a little too volatile to use for day-to-day transactions. So the Fed's going to help by creating a federal government-backed digital currency or something, which we've talked a little bit about that before. But anyway, interesting.
I'm sorry. I will offer this piece of advice. If you are buying a fiat cryptocurrency, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? You have defeated the purpose of the cryptocurrency by making it a fiat currency. Sorry. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's a strange one. Okay. Wait, here we go. Jedi Knight, Anakin Crinchwalker. Options can go to zero value easily. 90% of them do, right? Because the bet is wrong, and so there's just no point. The option is not of any interest to anyone, right? Because it's a bad. You had an option to buy or sell at a certain price at a certain date. You start getting towards that date, and you're not anywhere near what you would need to be for the option to work out. So I did not know that 90% of options go to zero value. So that is very interesting. Let's highlight one that is, I need to check my back list because I know that there was one I didn't want to miss. We've got the two.
Stop using super chats.
Keep sending
use tips.
Okay, Jedi Knight and Crinchwalker. What?
Keep sending them. Keep sending them. Yes, but use subscribe star, people. I know.
Yeah, right.
I know.
It's not that
hard. I know that YouTube is easier to do with your cards, but just you want to change, you want to make a difference, you want to get off Google's back like we are about to do. Oh, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You gotta make that active effort. Gotta make that active effort. So go use, if you want to donate and we want to have your input, go use those other platforms.
Excuse me. Okay, so Jedi Knight Anakin Crinchwalker says options contracts go by 100 units. Usually, if you can, sell covered calls and learn how to set the price. Never sell naked calls. So some tips on getting into the options market from him. Let's see. I need to trying to get those off. Okay, one more that we have from the beginning of the show. There we go. Hunger says your army is ready to HODL, hold the line, at $40,000, my liege. What is the Moon King's bidding? Meaning, don't let Bitcoin go below 40, right? And of course, he's doing shades of. I'm sorry. What was the big hold the line thing? My mind went blank. Matt Merck, the GameStop.
Oh yeah,
he's doing the GameStop thing, right? We'll hold the line on Bitcoin. Everybody buy, right? Yeah, but I'd say it's very, very dangerous to play in these things, and make sure that you can live. Make sure you can lose it all and still be okay if you're going to mess around with anything like that.
Yeah. To be fair, as the Sun Emperor, I would have to confer with the Moon King as to what is happening on that front, but potentially hold the line, gentlemen.
Okay, and then I have to highlight this. Jedi Knight Anakin Crinchwalker made $60,000 last year on stonks. Oh, that's nice. Very good. I have not tended to speculate for whatever reason. So, okay, so let's bring that down. Last thing to highlight one more time while we've got your attention before we go is Apostolic Majesty is scheduled for next week's show, and we'll be talking about the Industrial Revolution in England, which why is there so much ink spilled on this? Because it seems like it was a pretty big deal. And it wasn't the first. We highlighted another super chat. We highlighted the Industrial Revolution of the Middle Ages, which goes back nearly 1,000 years ago. But the Industrial Revolution of the UK, starting in the 1700s, I think. I think it's the first time it just really got everybody's attention. Something's going on here. Dramatic changes are happening in terms of the kind of work people do, the kind of goods that are available to regular people to buy, and so much else. The traditional landed class was now being challenged by a rising class of people who are making their money from industry. So it shook so many things up in a country that is pretty strong on their class structure, right? So, okay, we got another one. Leo Borealis says, like the show, can be a bit obscure and esoteric at times, but what the hell? The love you have for crypto might be a problem, as viewers might undervalue the inherent risks. Yeah, and I guess that's part of the reason why Mad Merc is always careful to say, know what you're doing before you get into this stuff. And Leo Borealis goes on to say, and real assets have real values in an Evolian sense that might be of greater, if not monetary, value to the investor over time, tactile connections. He's talking about Julius Evola, who was coming from the traditional, trying to understand what it means to be a traditionalist across many cultures throughout time. What does it mean to really care about tradition? And he's saying from that point of view, real assets might mean something to you, even if they're not that valuable in the market. They might be important to your life, right?
Yeah,
to your
Leo, I would suggest to you what. Right. I would suggest to you, Leo, what you were talking about there is a different form of profit. We talk about psychic profit, for example.
Right.
And handing something down to your kids or something. It's a non-monetary means of profit. I think you would be interested in understanding how Austrians view profit and how we understand subjective value theory, and how that affects the individual and the individuals around the individual conducting his human action.
Right. In particular, I mean, in the end, it comes down to psychic profit, right? I mean, why do I decide to do this or decide to do that? Why do I work at this job rather than that one? Why do I buy this product instead of that? At bottom, it comes down to what is valuable to me. What is my psychic profit, so to say, or just what do I care about? What are my values, spiritual or otherwise? Okay. Anyway, thanks. A lot of great super chats today. Thank you so much. And we need to go because I got to take the kids to karate. So anyway, thanks everybody. Should be a really interesting show next week with our friend Apostolic Majesty, who is, shall we say, greatly learned. So it'll be fun. So thanks everybody. Thanks, Mad Merc, and get some sleep, my friend.
Yeah, I'm gonna slip back into bed after this.
Okay. All right. Bye, guys.